everyone, and welcome to the second video in our For Love of Homemade Kit series that I'm doing with Felicia and Christina and Hannah and Megan. So today this layout is going to be inspired by a layout that Missy Whitten did. She actually did it last week. It was a really cool layout. And so I'm starting by taking my Creative Memories circle cutters and using them more as a stencil. And my gray Chamel Slick Writer pens. I love this pen so much, this gray color. It's so, so cool. And I dread the day when it runs out of ink. So these are going to be my photos. They're pictures of our beagle and my oldest son. And I'm going to take some distress crayons. These distress crayons are in tumbled glass, chipped sapphire, and fossilized amber. And I thought that they worked really good with the colors that I had in my kit. And I'm going to take a water brush, and I'm going to use the water brush to move the distress crayons around inside the circles to create kind of a watercolor effect, a watercolor circle effect. I chose this is the technique that Missy Whitten did on her page, except she used hearts for her outlines, and she also used oil pastels. Well, I don't have any oil pastels or gelatos, but I have every package of distress crayons there are. So, and I really like them. I know how they work. They work so nice and smooth. So that was the medium I chose to use. And it worked really, really well. Distress crayons move. They don't react with water as much as gelatos, which actually means really, really good because you can get, it's really good for doing something like this where you fill in the lines because it's not going to bleed outside of where you put it. So I'm using those three colors, and I'm just going to go ahead and color inside of all of these pretty circles. And then with the gray outline, it just looks really, really cool. The other thing I really like is that when you use the distress crayons, you can kind of make shadows because it will stay darker where you initially put the distress crayons and then bleed them out. So here I did make a little goof up. I forgot to clean my watercolor brush in between, and so I ended up with purple, and purple was not what I wanted. But I just keep adding some pigment, and in the end it still kind of looks purple, but I cover up a lot of it, so it looks okay. But that happens sometimes. You just get involved in the artistic portion of what you're doing, and you forget that yellow and blue make purple. Of course, if you're looking for purple, can I just say that chipped sapphire and fossilized amber, when mixed together, does make a really nice shade of purple, if purple is what you're going for. So I'm just going to continue on to go ahead and watercolor all of these circles, and then we're going to fill them in with more circles. Also, I am doing this layout on watercolor paper. I have two favorite brands of watercolor paper, and I use both of them. So one is Strathmore Bristol watercolor, and the other paper is Canson watercolor paper, and I love them. And if they weren't as pricey as they kind of are, I probably would use them as my white cardstock or like as my background every time I was going to do a mixed media layout, but it doesn't quite economically work for that. So, but when I know I'm going to use a lot of water, I always grab my watercolor paper. So if you're looking for a good watercolor paper, those would be the two brands or the two kinds I would really, really recommend would be Strathmore Bristol watercolor paper and the Canson watercolor paper. So now all of my bubbles or circles, they do kind of look like bubbles, but they won't by the time I get finished with them. Now I'm using that Creative Memories circle cutters again, and I'm just drawing some sketchy black lines, and I'm adding some like little faux stitching pieces to them. I really wanted this page to have a really kind of sketchy hand-drawn background type of a look. Now everything is dry, and I decided to use my striped paper from my kit as a background behind my mixed media background. So this will help to stretch out my watercolor paper so it does so that any warping that's there will kind of get pushed out through. I also decided to do this because I really wanted, since I have those circles in the gray pen marked off, I really wanted to add more of that like gray to my layout, and I really liked the way this diagonal stripe looked behind my background. I think it gave it a really nice finished kind of look. And I'm using the Hickory Smoke Distress ink all around the edges of my paper. And then I do ink up some of the inside of my pages, or some of the papers I use during my layout, but not all of them. So a couple of them have some gray ink on them, but most are just plain. So here I am just stretching out that watercolor paper, getting myself a nice flat even surface to create the rest of my layout on. The next thing I'm going to do is I want to make sure before I start embellishing that I designate a spot to put my journaling. So the journaling on this layout is very important. It really does, the pictures really don't tell the story I want to tell without the journaling. So I wanted to make sure I had a really good amount of space to do my journaling. And I'll actually read you the journaling I chose to write. So if you follow my channel a lot, you know my oldest son has autism, and this layout is about our beagle and how he reacts or how he treats my son. And there are the two pictures there of our beagle and my son. And I'm going to now grab my hole puncher, and I'm going to grab my circle punches, and I'm going to punch circles like a madwoman, but I'm not going to make you watch me do that. And then I'm going to glue circles like a madwoman inside all of those watercolor circles. And I didn't make you watch me do that either, because really, paint drying. So it's just punch a bunch of circles, fill the circles with circles. And then we're going to go ahead and grab our photos, and I'm going to mat them with these two papers. So I chose to use this yellow, my bold paper from my kit, and my other 6x6 paper, which is this blue paper from the Saturday collection from Dear Lizzie. And I'm going to use, I've been loving the color combination of navy blue and yellow with photos of my kids recently, and I just love how this color set off the photos, and it's so pretty. So the journaling I'm going to read you the journaling. It says, "Some days for Morgan are just hard. Overstimulated, not enough sleep, all these things can make for a day full of meltdowns. I've noticed over the years that those are the days Snoopy, which is the name of our beagle, stays by Morgan's side, comforting him as only an amazing dog can." So that's my journaling, and the reason I read it all off to you is because when I start to do my title, you'll understand how the title relates to the journaling and how the title relates to the story that I'm going to tell with these layouts. So yep, he is about 9 years old now, our beagle, and he stays like my journaling described. So now I'm going to go ahead and I want to use this wood veneer from my kit, which is, it says Love, and I'm going to color it with chipped sapphire distress paint, and go ahead and set that aside and let it dry as I continue to work on my title. So I chose my stamps, finally. Yes, I added stamps to my layout. I chose an alphabet because I knew I didn't have a ton of thickers in my kit, in my homemade kit, and I was going to run out of letters. And these stamps, I love them. They're by close to my heart, and they're called... So these stamps are called Jennifer's Hand, and if you are a fan of Crafty Jen Scow, she designed these stamps for close to my heart, and that is her handwriting. So what I did was I took the letters, I'm going to show you here how I lined them up to make my title. I just took my stamping block and I put the letters right up against the top of my stamping block so that the letters would be good and straight. And my fuzzy head was going to get in the way of the stamping the title, so I don't show you all of it, but you get to see my fuzzy head. And I stamped it using the Chipped Sapphire Distress ink because I really liked that look, and then it matched all the blues in my layout. So here is my completed layout. I just added a couple die cuts and some enamel dots to finish it off, and that wood veneer. I want to give a huge thank you to Hannah and Felicia and Christine and Megan for letting me play along with them on their Love of Homemade Kit video series this round. I'm having so much fun. I love my kits, and I'm really enjoying the process of creating using lots of different products from my stash. I will link everyone's channel below, and I hope that you have a wonderful day, and I will see you back on my channel on Thursday with a brand new collaboration. So that'll be super fun. I'll talk to you later. Bye.